So thank you everybody for joining me on this CE on a Tuesday night. I'm on the East Coast, a little bit later over here. I see there's some people on the West Coast, some people from Tennessee. So appreciate everybody joining. And I'll try to keep this as entertaining as possible. So again, my name is Werner Blumenthal. My background's in biomedical engineering, or at least that's what my degree is in. My professional career has revolved around developing and launching products, specifically in the medical device industry. But like Dr. Rowland said, my company's touched everything from toys to dental products to some aerospace devices. So a wide range of products. And luckily, we've been involved throughout basically every single phase of the process. So given that, let me just make sure I disclose a conflict of interest. I am a founder and CEO of WB Engineering, and I declare a financial relationship between WB Engineering and Pivotal LLC. So, what we'll be talking about is essentially what I've learned throughout my career, and we'll also be going through a case study to try to kind of bring it home a little bit. So let's focus real quickly on the learning objectives. The learning objectives of today are to understand the steps you will need to navigate when developing a dental product. So I'm going to try to go at a high level over all the steps that you would be encountering when developing a product. Specifically, I'll try to lean into a product in the dental field so that it kind of resonates a little bit more with the audience. Um, we also want to make sure that we point out what you want to focus on in order to reduce time and money needed for development. We've gone through a lot of projects, and there are the right way and the wrong way to do things. I'm not saying we always do it the right way, but I know that we've made enough mistakes to understand what's the better way to do it. So I'm going to make sure that you learn from our mistakes, you learn from our experience, and really focus in on what can possibly, make your project launch a little bit less painful. The other thing is, want you to also understand when you should be protecting your idea legally, and how to go about that without maybe spinning your wheels a little bit too much. And lastly, in general, we want to make sure that you stack the odds in your favor, because a lot of these projects take a lot more money than an individual has in their back pocket, or at least maybe is willing to risk. So it's important that you stack the odds in your favor so that you can get investment. We'll go over a couple different types of investment and maybe the pros and cons of each method of investment that you can get. Okay, so a little bit more about me. I know I kind of mentioned it earlier, but just to kind of emphasize, there's very few things I enjoy more than being part of a process of bringing an idea to reality. It's really nice to see somebody come in with this idea. It might be a little convoluted, might be a little rough around the edges, it might even have a rough prototype, and then seeing that go through all the phases, left turns, right turns, all the way out to an optimized product that now we're filling up a warehouse and they're now launching this sales strategy. And you see these companies just kind of blossom into something off of the courage of its founder and just the great idea that they were able to dedicate themselves to and bring to market. I have about 17 years of experience. I started working as a biomedical engineer right out of college. I worked for a large medical device company, helped them with their quality control and some product development, and then quickly pivoted over to consulting. And then that has led me to be able to work with a lot of large companies with a wide range of products. So the experience has been very vast, which has helped us become much more pliable when it comes to getting projects off the floor. We are also responsible for launching a lot of product projects that start from idea, and then in some cases projects that have already been out and they just need some refinement in order to reduce production costs, reduce failures, optimize for user experience, whatever it might be. And finally, I'm actively on the board of several companies overseeing everything from how to secure funding, patents, distribution, sales, and specifically manufacturing. It's just a quick screenshot of some of the clients that we worked with over the years. Many more, but these might be a little bit more notable. Everything ranging, like I mentioned, from medical device companies to universities. So wide range. Okay, so what are the steps we're going to be looking at through this presentation? And again, this is going to be very high level, so we're going to be skimming over a lot of this. Again, the goal of this is for you to get a general concept of what to look out for, and that we know which steps to hit and how to go about it. So initially, you have an idea and you probably have some research around it. Hopefully, maybe, I mean, whether you have an idea or not, if you're in this webinar, you might be thinking about launching an idea or might be thinking about maybe moving forward with that idea that you've had for a very long time and just need a little bit more guidance along the way. So we'll go through that initial idea generation research phase so that you can help kind of hone in on what you're trying to do. Next, feasibility study. That's very important. So you want to make sure that you understand what you're embarking on, what's the challenges that are going to be coming your way, and then how to make sure that that's something that's realistic and feasible, right? So you always want to make sure that you have goals that are measurable and attainable. And you want to make sure before you jump onto any project that you have that kind of well lined out up front, because it could honestly it could ruin you if you go down there with your own finances and a bad plan in place or no plan, even worse, right? Conceptual design and prototyping, that's a very critical phase that should be tackled very early on. Refinement and testing, that's something that honestly is extremely important so that you don't have to worry about refining and testing later on during the design cycle when it's more costly and expensive to do so. Market analysis, that's critical up front to make sure you understand, how much can you sell your product for? Is for people out there that really want this product? Is this a problem that really the industry is facing as a whole, as opposed to maybe this little niche that I'm in? Helps you understand pricing, competition. So it's important to understand your market early on. Regulatory compliance, chances are you might be looking into developing a dental product that could be classified as a medical device. There are regulatory bodies that you need to follow their guidance in order to legally sell your product. There's certain testing, documentation, quality control that you need to put in place in order to do so. It's important you understand that before you go in, because a very different process launching something that might be an exempt medical device to a class 3 medical device, which is a completely different monster, right? So understand what kind of device you're launching, understand what classification it falls under. That's going to be very important to understand exactly what it is you need to do in order to move forward. Intellectual property protection, that's something that's important to do, but I think it also is there's a time and the place for that, right? So we'll go over that. Funding and acquisitions, production and manufacturing, branding and marketing, distribution and sales, customer feedback and iterations, and then sales and growth, right? Hopefully we all get to that last phase where you start to see that hockey puck graph, your sales. So let's talk a little bit about idea generation and research. So what are you doing during this phase, right? Well, you have an idea. How do you refine it? There's a lot of different things that you want to do, but let's just focus on these couple bullets that I put on here. This is, again, not all inclusive, but these are very important steps that you want to look at. So focus on the problem that you're trying to solve. I'll give you some examples of experience firsthand. There are a lot of mostly individual inventors, but then also companies as well that want to develop something that solves a certain problem that has a lot of bells and whistles. And a lot of the times, the bells and whistles are not necessary, overly complicate the product, and in some cases, hinder the process, right? So you really want to initially hone in on very specific problem and how are you going to efficiently solve that one specific problem in order to reduce the complexity and the scope of your project down to something that's laser focused. In general, things that are niche tend to have much bigger margins and they work a lot better, right? You want to solve a very specific problem as efficiently as possible. And if you do it very well, you can have a better profit margin at the end of the day instead of adding those bells and whistles. So again, focus on what it is you're trying to solve. The frills maybe you can add on later, but initially what you want to do is go to the number one prioritized thing that you're trying to solve and really hone in on that. Um, when you find out what the problem is, look at different ways to solve it. One of the things that you want to make sure you do is you don't fall in love with your first idea. You want to be able to ping pong this off of people that you trust and to understand, is there different ways to solve this problem? If so, let's explore them well, it's still quick and easy because you can change your mind on a dime. But once you've already hired engineering, once you've already gone down prototyping and you're in production or even launched a product, changing how you're solving that is going to be a lot more of an endeavor than it was initially. So try to think about that early on. Try to, shoot down all the bad ideas, or actually, and initially, no idea is a bad idea, just some are better than others, right? You're going to learn off of some of the ideas that are not optimal and understand how to, kind of leverage that for a good thing. What methodologies exist to solve your problem? So you don't want to look at this in a vacuum. You want to make sure that you understand your problem could be universal, and you want to make sure that you look at that in that fashion. You want to see if there's competitors out there trying to solve that same problem. Be honest with yourself. What's really good about that competitor? What's bad about that competitor? Or maybe let's not say bad, but what can be optimized, or what's kind of lacking there? You want to kind of focus on that a bit. How is your solution more effective and better than existing solutions? Compare and contrast. Test those products, buy those products, use them. Don't make assumptions about how the competition works. You want to really make sure you learn them, right? Keep your friends close, your enemies closer. Not to say that any competitors are enemies, but get the gist of it. And always keep in mind that you want to make sure you offer return on investment for the product. People, whether that be financial, whether that be in terms of gratification, you want to make sure that your product is actually offering a benefit compared to what's already out there in the market. Okay, so idea generation and research. So develop and refine your ideas. You want to make sure that you use whatever is to your disposal in order to be able to narrow that down, right? Don't be afraid to ask for opinions and feedback. I know it's very early on. It's an idea. You think it's going to blow into something that is, multi-millions of dollars, hopefully. You might be scared to share that. Well, at first, with your confidence, try to, explore different options. And then also, if it's somebody that might be someone that you don't want to really share something with, make sure they sign a non-disclosure up front. I wouldn't say that you want to get into patenting this early on, because I'll get into that later, but essentially a very rough idea that could be a very big waste of time and money patenting that, because at the end of the day, you might not launch with that. Um, Again, analyze existing solutions and identify how your invention addresses a unique problem and provides significant improvement, and then focus on simplification, like I mentioned earlier. Take away the frills, focus on really what's hardcore to your product. Even a mission statement up front kind of helps out a little bit too, right? And really understand what you're trying to focus on. How do you do some research, right? So very preliminarily, you have an idea, you got that light bulb, maybe you were taking a shower, you were washing your dog, you were walking, whatever you might be doing. Research it, right? In general, Google, YouTube are good for researching. You want to search ideas around your concept. Maybe there's people that are trying to solve this actively online, and you can see them on forums or YouTube or Google. Learn also if there's other or what kind of fabrication techniques can help fabricate your product, right? So whether it's a chemical, try to learn what's involved in chemical processes. If it's something that's mechanical, made out of metal, try to learn those fabrication processes. I know this seems a little bit disconnected from what your end goal is, but honestly, if you understand how your products can be fabricated, you can understand some limitations and complications to your idea. And then if you can understand how to narrow down your idea to an actual fabrication process, you can drastically reduce the cost of production, the complexity. You can understand what kind of features are going to add a lot of cost and complexity, what aren't. So, in general, try to get yourself saturated with not only the idea that you're trying to solve, the things that are out there to solve it, but then also the nature of your product. If it's going to be software, what language do you want to put this in? What's the benefit of each one? If it's chemicals, what restrictions there are with transportation? If it's mechanical, how can you and can you not make plastic parts? What do they withstand? Things like that. So the more general knowledge you build up front, again, the better. The better you can communicate one-on-one with either the engineering company that you're hiring or your internal engineering staff or whoever it might be that you're working with, the better. The more you're on par with everybody, I can't say this enough, it's going to save you a lot of time and also money, right? Uh, Trade shows, websites, and events, those are huge for understanding competition. A lot of times, trade shows have brand new products that aren't very popular that you haven't seen. Your distributors, a lot of the times, they send you, Patterson, Benco, Henry Schein, they send you these big brochures. They have a lot of other products that might be trying to solve the same problem. Learn off of them. Make sure that you understand your competitors and you really focus on that. How else do you research? Well, you can also look at white papers and CEs. That's more of a academic route. That's once you already kind of understand what you're looking at, you can start honing in on that, focusing in on that. And then also check Google Patent and USPTO, right? You don't want to be inventing something that's already invented. Not to say you can't improve on what exists, but you want to understand what's patented and what you may have to be paying a licensing fee for using, or maybe you find out what you're trying to patent is completely unthought of or not patented, or maybe even find out it's unpatentable, right? So there's those instances as well. I'm not saying get a patent up front right now. I still think it's still too early in the process, but you want to make sure you are not blatantly trying to develop something that's already patented. But you might find that the patent is expired, or you're improving on it, and therefore you can kind of write you can circumvent that patent with a good patent attorney as well. So, what are the key main goals that you're trying to take out of the ideation and research? Well, what we're trying to do here is you're trying to understand the problem that you're trying to solve. You want to know what is available to make your idea real, whether that's software, mechanical, production processes, whatever it might be. Um, what can you leverage to get there? Competitors, right? Existing data, CEs, any type of information out there. Is your idea already patented, right? You don't want to be stepping on any toes and then getting a cease and desist letter later on. Just make sure that you're covered in that sense before you get too in depth. And then that way you don't have to worry about, well, I already mentioned it, right? Royalties or infringing on anybody's patent. So those are kind of the key things you want to get out there, right? Understand your problem. How are you going to solve it? Is this something that's already patented? And am I doing a better job at it? So market analysis. This is something now that you have an idea, you kind of understand, you already know what you're trying to solve. Now you're looking at your competitors, right? Is there any other products out there that are doing something similar? And is your product something that's going to be offering better benefit for the same price or better? Maybe it's not a price thing, maybe it's more so a throughput thing. So you can price your product higher because now all of a sudden they can see more patients, there's better turnover, things like that. So you want to make sure that you look at competitive products and compare contrast what you're trying to accomplish. uh, Does your product offer an ROI? Again, there has to be a reason for somebody to purchase your product. I've seen it a lot where people come in to my office, they're in love with an idea, and that's what they want to produce, and they kind of develop it in a vacuum. You want to make sure that you put this in the hands of other people and they see value in your product, right? You want to see, okay, well, now all of a sudden, I can do this restoration 10% faster, or now all of a sudden I can do this procedure without the help of an assistant or whatever it might be, right? So you want to make sure that what you're offering is something that will offer a benefit to the end user, and that's extremely critical because that's going to help sell the product itself. The user experience, is that something that is improved? Because one thing I've learned working in the dental field is that if you mess with the workflow of an office, there's a lot of resistance to adapt a product. So the less you can mess with the workflow of a office, the better the chance your product is going to be adapted and taken on, right? So it's kind of a valley of adaptation with any product, right? So what you want to do is get over that learning curve as quickly as possible and not change up the workflow too much. And if you're changing up the workflow, it better be for the better, or else adapting to your product and the intake of your product is going to be difficult. They might use it the first couple of times, leave it on the shelf, and you don't have that recurring customer that's always the gold mine, right? So it's easiest to keep your customers coming back than trying to acquire new customers. There's a magnitude of difference in the amount of cost when it comes to acquisition of a customer versus maintaining a customer. And also, what is the motivation for the user to purchase a product? I went over it, right? What's in it for them? You always want to think about what's in it for them. More about the market analysis, potential competitors. I can't harp on that enough. Competitors are out there and they're selling their product. They have some level of success. Learn from the good and from the bad of the competitors. You may have your idea because you're using a competitive product and say, you know what, this would be better if fill in the blank. Make sure that you look at other competitors and see why maybe they haven't done that. Maybe they haven't thought about it, and that's a hole in one right there. Maybe it's just difficult to implement. maybe it's impractical, cost prohibitive, whatever it might be. But the more you look at it, the better. Your target audience, who are you trying to sell this product to? Is it the dentist? Is it the assistant? Is it the office manager? Is it the patient that you want maybe more patient acquisition because a dental office or practice is using this? And all of a sudden, they have more patients coming their way. You want to look at market trends. Is this something that is growing? Is it something that's going away? One idea that you can think about is Blockbuster, right? Nobody's going to open up a brick and mortar movie place. It's all digital. That's a bad trend to jump into. If you're talking about streaming online, maybe that's a saturated one. During COVID, aerosols, right? Any type of aerosols, that was a huge trend. Now, maybe not so much. So you want to make sure you understand your trends. Infection control, though, in general, is actually on an uptrend. Those are just kind of things you want to be looking at. Is something in an uptrend, a downtrend, whatever it might be? uh, Assess the size and the characteristics of your customer base, right? So is this really just the dentists that are going to be using it? Okay, well that's a pie this big. Is it also hygienists? The pie gets bigger, et cetera. So you want to understand exactly what the population is and how much your potential audience is to understand exactly how much is worth investing before you actually get a return on investment. So your main goals here are to identify the need you are addressing, understand your competitors, know what the market is willing to pay, and know your addressable market size. Feasibility studies, very important. This is something that you want to make sure you understand up front because you want to know how difficult this route is going to be, how difficult it's going to be to develop your product, what steps are required to do so, right? So, does the technology exist to make your invention work as imagined? The reason why I put this question on here is because I had this person come to my office, sweet lady. She wanted me to develop a product that dried your hair, similar to what you use to dry your hair at a hair salon. That gives you that big helmet, but she wanted us to do it without air, without heat, and it had to be portable and it had to be extremely light. And I asked her, well, how does the hair dry then? She said, I don't know. You're the engineer, right? So what you don't want to do is walk into a place with that broad of an idea and no way of knowing how you're trying to accomplish it, right? So just having an idea like I want to try time travel is not the way to approach this. You want to make sure that you have an idea, you know how to approach it, because when you approach an engineering company or a consultant or whatever it might be, they will not solve every world problem. What they're good at doing is trying to translate your idea into reality with existing technology, right? So just make sure you know whatever you're trying to invent, you can, kind of know what kind of technology exists to get you there. How will the invention be produced? Again, just kind of get familiar with, fabrication processes or coding or whatever it might be that you're trying to develop your product under chemicals, et cetera. Is there existing technology for the production that can be leveraged? Meaning, if this is a plastic part, what plastic parts look like my plastic part? What methodology are they using? Can my plastic part be made using the same methodology? Yes or no, right? Um, how are you going to be able to test and verify your product before production? Prototyping is very important. You need to understand if there's a way to prototype your idea. How are you going to go about doing that? What are the cost implications? What do you need to be able to do that? Those kind of questions are very important. Is the product serviceable? This is important to know because you want to know where your price point of the product is going to be. You want to think about the obsolescence of your product. There is actually a thing called planned obsolescence as well. Just knowing when your product is going to fail, and that helps for marketing, right? You want to give the people the right expectation of your product. Is it single use? Is it a semi-disposable? Is it something that I buy once and I don't have to worry about it for the rest of my life? And then you want to know, okay, well, if I develop this product and it breaks, what happens? Was it at a price point low enough where the customer could just, buy another one, or is it at a price point where the customer is now, looking to fix it because it's just not, financially practical to replace it? Now you need to kind of, think about those kind of aspects. Uh, what materials should you use? Is a weight an issue? Is this going to be metal part? Maybe metal's too expensive for your part because it's a disposable. So just kind of wrap your head around, what it needs to be made out of, the cost implications of that, how long it's going to last. Also, if it's something that needs to be sterilized, you make sure, okay, well, is this something that makes sense to put into an autoclave? Is it size to put inside of an autoclave in a standard dental practice. If you want to look at the whole life cycle of your product, not just when you're going to use it. Okay, well, after you use it, what happens? Is it disposable? Do I have to sterilize it? Okay, well, how can it be sterilized? What materials do I need to use in order for us to fit in the standard sterilization cycle of a dentist office? So, those kind of things you want to make sure you look at ergonomics, things like that. And that list can go forever, right? So there's unlimited amount of variables you want to be looking at. Financial considerations is very important. A lot of people just focus on how much does it cost to develop this? How much am I going to have to pay a company to develop this for me or my employees to develop this for me? And they kind of lose track of a lot of the peripherals. Legal can be something that is very expensive. If you start to get into, class 2 and 3 medical devices, compliance is huge. Patents, depending on where you're trying to sell it, how many patents your device has, how many countries you're trying to get this patented in, legal limitations, meaning all the legal jargon you have to put on your product, the labeling, things like that. That costs money to kind of develop. Also, insurance, contracts. Are you licensing any patents from anybody? Those cost implications, developing the product, like I mentioned earlier, and then also sales and marketing is something that a lot of people kind of forget. They just say, okay, well, I'm going to develop it. They end up with a warehouse full of product that nobody knows about, and you definitely don't want to end up in that. So again, the main goals here is to understand the technologies available to develop your product, given your budget constraints. Establish that the invention or concept can realistically solve the current problem, given again your budget constraints. Understand the regulatory bodies that you need to get your product approved by in order to be able to sell in the territories of interest as well. So you want to make sure all those things are covered, as well as, I can't harp on enough, that there's a reason for people to purchase it and there's a good ROI involved. So whatever you invest, you need to get money back on it, as well as whoever your customer is. If they invest, they expect something in return, whether it be time or money. Conceptual design and prototyping. This is an important phase to get through. This is something that you may have to hire outside help for, or maybe you are handy, you can do this in-house. Um, Sketching, don't be afraid to use sketches, clay, whatever dentists are very good with their hands. You have things around, you might even have CNC machine inside of your office. You might have a 3D printer inside of your office. Try to leverage that as much as possible and try to get as far as you can in terms of concept development. The more things you can have in your hand, or the more things you can actually try, the better. You're going to learn an exponential amount from having something tangible to try out and use, practice with, and see what kind of limitations you have. So make sure that you take advantage of computer aided design, so CAD, 3D printing, machining. So you might have a CNC machine, which is subtractive manufacturing. We get a block, you whittle it down in the shape, and any and all resources that you might have to make your product as close to final product as possible before you invest in production. Your main goal during this is to get what we call an MVP, a minimally viable prototype, something that explains in physical form, whether it be a software website that's showing an actual physical thing in your hands, so that you can communicate and try this product out. It doesn't necessarily have to be a beautiful final product, but it has to be able to accomplish what you're trying to do, right? Learn and adapt from that as much as possible. You want to make sure that you test it. And again, try not to fall in love with your initial idea. You're going to learn a lot along the way. The more pliable and flexible you are with your idea, the better. And then again, hone in on what's important. What do you need to whittle this down to in order to solve that problem? Refinement and testing. Now, this is the part that takes a lot of maturity on the inventor side. Reason why I say this is because this is where you stop being married to your initial idea and you're open to other ideas. You test it, you realize there's issues, you need to be able to adapt. And it could have been the feature that you really love that just doesn't make sense, right? But you need to be able to, get through that and be pliable. So you want to make sure that you're meeting certain safety standards, quality standards, performance. Your ergonomics are very important in dental practice. I honestly, the couple times that I've developed dental products, and I've been, in the trenches of the R&D area where I had to actually go and test the stuff. Hats off to everybody in the dental industry. My back was hurting, my neck was cramped. So ergonomics are extremely expensive in this. I'm sorry, expensive. Extremely important in this industry. So that's something that I can't, I can't emphasize enough. Ergonomics. There's a lot of wear and tear in your industry. So if you focus on that, people are comfortable using it. Your product's going to go a long way. Size requirements, again, maybe it's a thing of don't have too much space in your operatory, or in order to sterilize it, you need to be a certain size, things like that. Weight requirements might be uncomfortable for the patient if it's too heavy, or for the doctor or the assistant. Stresses, make sure that your product withstands the stresses and the loads of whatever it has to do in order to perform the way it needs to perform. So just make sure that you understand whether this is better suited to be single use or reuse product, and then keep that in mind because because you did market research, you understand what price point the market might be able to withstand this product at. So therefore, you kind of have to backtrack from that price to what your cost is. One rule of thumb, which I might be talking about this later, but just know that if you're trying to sell it retail for $1, your cost probably should be somewhere around a quarter. And the reason why I say that is because it costs you a quarter to make, you sell it wholesale at 50 cents, and then the distributor sells it at $1, right? That's just an easy metric. If you can stay at 25% of what your retail price is going to be in terms of cost, you're good because everybody along the food chain is going to have the margins that they want. Your distributor is going to love it because you give them good margins. You're going to love it because you have good margins, and hopefully you're still reasonably priced because you did your market analysis and you understand that's the price point where you need to be. During the refinement and engineering process, these are kind of a couple of things that you want to look at. Again, you want to emphasize what is the problem, the idea or ideation, how to resolve that problem, prototyping. You want to make sure you know how to create the solution to that problem. You want to test it. Once you test it, you're going to understand what your limitations of your prototype is. Then you want to refine it and then kind of rinse and repeat until you really get down into something that you feel comfortable with. You've tried it, you get some feedback, you do some maybe some focus groups, etc. So what are you trying to do during this refinement and testing? Ensure you learn as much as you possibly can from your MVP, pivot as early as possible, and try to get the good results from the testing and get some feedback and rinse and repeat. Create a functional prototype so that you can actually, really try something as close to the final product as possible at this point. Make several prototypes so that you have them in the sense of you've refined your prototype. This is as close to the final product as I can get before I go to production. You want to have one as like a gold standard for you, and then whoever's producing your product, you probably want to give them a prototype as well, so they know how this product's supposed to work, what you expect before they go to production. They make 10,000 of these, and then oh, it's not exactly what I wanted. So make sure you have that, and then also you want to narrow down the manufacturing process to what it is that you're going to be using to mass produce this. At this point, you've refined your product down to the point where you know what material it is, how it needs to react with certain stresses, ergonomics, the weight, whatever it might be. You're gonna start realizing metal's too heavy or plastic's too delicate or whatever it might be, and then you can kind of look at what manufacturing processes you have. Regulatory compliance, very important. This ranges from labeling. You need to worry about the FDA if it's a medical device. Is it a class 1 or 2 or 3? There's different requirements to go through all those. Does this need a CE mark? Is it something that's going to be sold in Europe? So you need ISO or TUV certification. Does it need to be packaged so it can be sterilized or shipped in a certain way? What's the liability of your product? What kind of insurance do you need to carry, not only for your own good, but if you're going to sell this via distributors, do you need 4 million, $8 million of liability insurance? To audit you, so you need to keep documentation for at least 4 years on everything that you have. So make sure everything is documented properly. That way, in the instance that you might get audited by the FDA, because now you're a big bad company, they want to make sure that everything's going well because you're selling millions of these units. Make sure your quality and documentation is up to par. That's going to save you a ton of money. Hopefully, even avoid penalties and fees, and God forbid a lawsuit, right? So what do you want to do from here? You want to understand what approvals are required from what regulatory bodies, and understand what kind of documentation that you need to have, and testing results that you need to have in order to be, good. And then a plan that, excuse me, you also want to make sure that you have the documentation required in order to launch your product as well. Intellectual property. So I bring this up later on in the presentation because intellectual property is something you want to really kind of lock down when you're ready to go to production, right? You've already done your MVP. Now you've refined it. Now you have this, pre-production prototype that works the way you want it, looks the way you want it. You already know the manufacturing processes that you're going to be using to develop it. You want to take that design, that concept, that functional version of it to an attorney. At that point, you want to patent your idea. You want to patent exactly what you're going to market on. And then the attorney is actually going to branch out and get that as broad as possible at that point, right? So, you might be patenting, let's just call it a computer mouse, which does exactly X, Y, and Z, and that's what you're patenting. But the patent attorney is going to say, okay, well, it could also do this, or it could also do that. So you're going to start to patent what you have plus, the peripheral of it. So I like to bring it to the patent attorney after the fact, so you don't have to pay for revisions, right? You want to do maybe a patent search up front. That's the most I would recommend doing very early on. If you don't feel comfortable doing a patent search via Google Patent, and you want a more comprehensive one from somebody who's experienced, then maybe go to a patent attorney up front, do a patent search. The provisional patent is something that maybe you can look into. But that's something that basically what it does is gives you an earlier filing date, which means if I'm working on an idea, you're working on an idea, we're both developing it in parallel. But I went to the patent attorney earlier on and said, look, I'm going to patent something that does X, Y, and Z. They're going to give me the filing date of when I go, not when I actually launch. Now, mind you, you have 1 year to do that, right? So if you have an idea, you need to be able to develop it within a year to actually file a patent for that provisional. So provisional patents may or may not be, they're not required, but it might be a good idea to get one if you're something, let's say, for example, like the event that we had, COVID, right? That's something that was very time sensitive thing to address. Maybe it made sense to do a provisional patent at that point. In most cases, honestly, everybody feels like their idea is burning a hole in their pocket, but in the reality is it might not be. You still have more time than you might think. Design patents, that just covers the look of your product, right? Not the best patent to have. You want to have that in conjunction to, but not as your core. So design patent is good. That's kind of like between Apple and Samsung. That was that fight they're having because they look alike. That's all that's going to protect. Now, plant patent, let's ignore that. That's for agriculture. Provisional patent, just mentioned it. That's something that you get, just kind of mark the line in the sand. I skipped over it. I'm sorry. The most important one, utility patent. That protects the function of your product, right? So that one's very important. That one you need to have right before you go to production with what you have, because that's going to protect what your product does and how it does it, whether it be chemical, mechanical, software, whatever it might be. There's international patents, European patents. So, you can get in all of those depending on where it is you want to sell. So what are you trying to get out of this step? Well, understand that you want to patent. I'm sorry, what you're patenting and where you're going to be going to market with it. Um, get the IP protection in the markets that you're going to be selling, and ensure that ensure your IP protection. I'm sorry, protect that. Make sure that you're protecting your product in all the jurisdictions that you're trying to sell. But funding and acquisition, this is something that you want to look at when it comes to, now that you have this idea, it's refined. You need to understand how much it's going to cost. You want to focus on product development, manufacturing, marketing, distribution, packaging, inventory, control and housing, etc. There's a lot of things that you want to look into. When you're looking at funding, there's different types of funding. Personal savings, that's high risk, obviously. You don't have to talk to anybody about it except for maybe your spouse. Loans, so you want to take on You want to take on debt. That means you need to answer to somebody, uh, i.e. a bank. You're going to be paying interest on that. You can also get investors, which means equity. So selling a percent of your product. Now you need to answer to investors. They might be able to now push your idea in certain directions depending on what percentage they have. Crowdfunding and grants. The medical industry, grants are actually available, especially if you're in educational area. So look into that. Production and manufacturing. Who's going to manufacture your product? Where is it going to be coming from? How is it going to be made? Are you going to design your packaging? Packaging design is actually very important. If you make something an inch smaller, you might be able to fit 10% more on a container, which drops your cost overall. Is there going to be importation tax? What warranties are you going to offer with your product? Uh, where is the quality insurance assurance coming from? Who's doing that? So you want to make sure that you pay attention to all those details when you get to production and manufacturing. I'm sorry, I'm starting to speed up because I think I fell behind a little bit on my slides, so I'm going to start moving a little bit faster. Branding and marketing, right? This is something that typically my clients do while their product is getting into manufacturing. Manufacturing, on the short end will take 3 months. More typical is 6 to 8 months. So you have 6 to 8 months to really develop the branding around your product, graphics, sales tools, sales tools for your sales representatives, for your distributors, marketing videos, website, everything. What's your sales plan going to be? How many people are you going to hire on? All this stuff you want to really do while your product is, scaling up and getting into production. Sales and distribution. How are you going to sell your product, right? So there's a lot of different ways that you can sell your product. You need to understand, are you going to be selling this directly to the consumer, meaning you have a website, or you're going to have your own sales reps, etc.? Are you going to do it via partnerships with retailers? So are you going to sell it via big box stores? Or are you going to go via distributors like Patterson, Midway, Practicon? Are you going to do white labeling, which means are you just simply going to buy a product that already exists, rebrand it, and sell it under your brand name? Or are you going to develop are you going to develop your product and then not sell it under your name and just say, look, Henry Schein, if you want this product, we'll put Henry Schein on it. It's a Henry Schein product. We just produce it for you. The other thing is you want to make sure that you have sales strategies ready. Yeah, you want to make sure that you have sales tools for whether your people are internal, external, your customer service, your distributors, your sales reps from distributors, your your influencers, whatever it might be. You need to make sure they have assets, right? You need to make sure that they understand the return on investment of your product, etc. So you want to make sure you have as many tools as possible so that when your warehouse is full, you're not starting to do the branding and the sales and all sort of stuff because you're going to be way behind the ball on that point. Paying for where your product's being stored, your product when it's inventory, it's an asset, but it's in some sense a liability. That's cash that you can't move around. It's illiquid. So you want to make sure you can move that into cash as quickly as possible. The way to do that is make sure that you're ready to hit the ground running, do pre-sales, things like that. That's something that's very important. That's actually in some cases what's funded the full production for some of our customers. Are you going to be selling when you're selling via distribution? What insurance do they recover? The payment terms that they offer. Can you handle it? Right? Is it 90 days they're going to pay you back? 30 days? You need to understand that when you're talking about funding. Can you provide training material? If you're selling direct, do you have a website? How are you going to advertise? Do you have a sales team? How are you going to get traffic to your website? All these things you want to make sure you're thinking about and you're really kind of honing in on during that time period of time where your product is going from prototype into mass production. Business plan. So now that you've gone through all of this, you have what you need to develop a business plan, right? So basic ingredients for a business plan is executive summary, company description, target market analysis, organization and management or operational plan, products and services that you'll be offering, marketing strategy, sales strategy, funding requirements, financial projections. So these are all things that we've already covered in the C. And as you've gone through this process, you've created a let's just call it a database of all this information based off of what you've been working on diligently over the past months, years to get to this point. Put together that business plan. Try to do a lot of this under your own steam as much as possible because as soon as you start bringing people on, this business plan starts getting pushed earlier and earlier and earlier, and it's much harder to get funding the earlier you are. I say usually go for funding once you already have a minimal viable prototype. So it might take some of your own steam to get to the MVP before you get to something that you can test, refine, and get more funding for. Customer feedback and iterations. Once you've launched, that's not the last time you're going to see this. It's not the last time you're in R&D. You want to hear what your customers are saying. Make sure you set an easy way to collect data from your customers when they're using your product. Offer maybe a discount for a next purchase. Offer Starbucks gift cards, whatever it might be. That information, they're already your customer. You want to make sure how to keep them. Make sure you hear them, you listen to them, and you tell them that they know that you're actually implementing the changes that you're asking for. So make sure that you know that the first version of your product is never going to be the best version. Your customers are always going to give you feedback. Therefore, you need to be able to understand and be nimble enough to pivot off of that information. Sales and growth, or I'm sorry, scale and growth, right? So now that you've already produced your first batch, you're selling, you want to start looking at ways to cut production costs, whether that be looking at your product and seeing, how can I refine this to reduce overall costs? What costs what inside of this product? Can I do without certain things? Maybe the shipping configuration could be more compact. Maybe the material I'm using could be more economic. Improving quality. Is there a failure mode that just keeps on coming back and customer satisfaction is just, really not going to where you want it to because there's certain failures. You want to improve the user experience, or maybe even you realize, wow, this product is amazing. It'd be even better if I added this accessory to it, or if I sold this in conjunction with it, right? So those are important things to look at. Remember, you don't want to, just kind of cut it off there. So with that, I'm going to get into a quick case study of a product that we developed during the pandemic. This was something from a doctor that's local here to Florida. I'm sorry, my throat's getting a little dry. He wanted something to help him out with the aerosol issue. As you all know, you probably all had to close down your practices for a certain period of time. That hurt the pocket. When you came back to work, it was really hard to find people to help. So he needed something to help him get back into the operatory, minimizing his risk for exposure, minimizing his need for an assistant, and also offering a return on investment because next strapped for cash because he has not been working for a while. So therefore, the disposable income is a little bit tighter at this point. So these are some of the initial concept. This is actually a picture of the doctor right here telling me, something that he wanted to kind of hang off the side of the face using the buccal area, and he wanted it to kind of hold itself in place. It had to be lightweight. We started doing some sketches. The initial ideas were just horrible. You see here on the left, that's the idea with all these bells and whistles. Looks very uncomfortable. The dentist loved it, but then once we started to refine it and test it with certain people, we ended up with the product on the right, which obviously looks like a very refined version of where we started out, right? So just know that the process helps you wean off the excess and really get into what's important. So on this next slide, what we're going to show you is a video that's showing the product actually working. So once we play this video, you'll notice that on one side is actually the operatory flooded with a fluorescent light, and we have a non-toxic dye here that actually glows. And what you'll notice is we're doing a quick mock cleaning from canine to canine on the top and the bottom. And what we're trying to prove here is how well and how effective the product worked versus the control. Because the last thing you want to do is launch something, make claims, and then not have anything to prove it. It's really hard to show that without actually having, these kind of glow or fluorescent lights, because this splatter just accumulates in an operatory, and it's not something that's very easily visible. So on the next slide, what we're going to do is we're going to show actually how we compare to competitive products, right? So in this scenario, what we're doing is we're making sure, okay, we're doing what we said. We reduced aerosol and splatter, but are we better than what's out there on the market? Are we actually doing any better? And is there room to what we did? We got the aerosol cyst on the left, and then we got two other products that were on the market claiming to do the same thing. The one in the middle, competitor number one, obviously we're doing a lot better than that person. The competitor on the right was actually another competitor, but at a completely different price point. So though they did a decent job, the level of investment between those two products was drastically different. So what are the results that we got from this product? First thing is we did that whole pre-sale thing. We were working on the brand, on the marketing and branding prior to the launch of the product. So therefore, we were actually able to get 6 figures worth of pre-launch revenue in order to actually sell out the first 2 runs of production of this product, which isn't typical. I got to admit that we were very lucky with that. The aerosol cyst was also something that has a very large gross margin, right? Remember that you sell it for $1, it should cost you 25 cents. Essentially, that's the methodology that we did in here. The aerosol cyst also reduces aerosols more efficiently than competitive products. So we wanted to make sure that if anybody put this side by side to a product that we were competing with, we were actually better and we had some proof to show. And then also we were blessed with a best in class award the year we actually launched. So that just kind of shows when you do your due diligence up front, you can actually get some really good results. So it's very easy to be different, but it's very difficult to be better. That's one of my favorite quotes there. You don't want to just make something different for the heck of it. You want to make sure that you're actually better than what is out there. Here's some useful resources to look at. USPTO, Google Patents. Then there's also some other websites there like ISO if you're going to be going into Europe, things like that. So those are things you might want to research for upfront before you get into anything. And that's about it. That's the entire CE. I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate your time and here for any questions.
Thank you, Werner. Anybody have any questions for Werner? Now is the time. And I can tell you he is a wealth of information here. So let's see. We've got questions coming in, comments. Thank you. Very informative. Thank you. Werner, if somebody came to you with an idea, what would their initial steps look like? And I know we're going to go to your presentation here shortly, but just off the top of your head.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. Yeah. So it really depends on where you are in the market. Initially, when you come to us with an idea, or you go to anybody who's going to develop your idea, it should initially be kind of an interview. We want to understand what you've done and what you're trying to accomplish. If we don't understand that, we're just basically going to be driving 2 cars in a different direction, right? So first thing is really understand what your goals are. The idea, what have you already learned? What price point you want to sell it at? A lot of times we ask that very early on because, like I said, we need to reverse engineer what you think the sale point is at and what the cost needs to be. Because a lot of times there's a disconnect between, you want to sell it for $1, but you're trying to develop something that's going to cost $20 to make. So we want to make sure we establish that early on. I hope that answered the question.
You did. Thank you. And there's a couple of questions here. Would a new service be the same process? We don't have a product per se, but we have a service.
Okay, yeah. So service, same process with the service. You want to be able to test that service up front, offer the service for free at first. And obviously, given the budget and what that service entitles, the liabilities around that service as well. But yeah, you definitely want to do trials of the service. You want to do surveys to see how much people are willing to pay for that service. See if you can get that service on a subscription style, kind of business model. So you want to really kind of test different things with a service in different, small focus groups, if you would. A lot of the times that means just giving up the service for free, right? You guys have to kind of try, get feedback. Look, I'll do this for free if you fill out this questionnaire and just start compiling that data as much as possible. A lot of times ask people, how much would you be willing to pay for this service? It usually helps when it's a third party doing that, or you act like you're a third party, because a lot of people, believe it or not, are nicer than you'd like them to be. They don't want to give you an honest, painful answer when that's what you need sometimes.
Question, how can I get a copy of the video? We are recording it. It will be available later this evening, and anybody who's registered and beyond will get the link to it. And where are you located? That's Richard.
I'm actually located in Miami, Florida.
Okay. Michael said he'll talk with you soon.
Great.
Yes. I
Oh,
did
okay.
come
There
into
you
the
go.
lecture. I did come into the lecture a little later. You're doing software development that can produce physical product sales.
Is that they're
That's
asking
for
me,
you. Yes.
am I doing software development? No, we have developed products that require software. In that situation, what we typically do is we take more of a consultative role and we manage the project as a whole. We do some software in-house, but it's limited. Sometimes we just have to go to people who are good at the specific language that's being developed.
Werner, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about your services specifically. And everybody, again, this portion is talking directly about Werner's specific company. It is considered promotional for AGD PACE. However, I would ask that you stay on because you're going to get more questions answered here. Go ahead, Werner. We'll go ahead, and I think some of these questions you can answer during the same time. Do you have legal in-house or referral?
No referral. We keep that. So what we do is we stick to what we do best, which is product design development in mostly the mechanical realm. We found that the best thing is to do to go to experts, right? So, we can't be experts in everything, but what we do is we do work with people who are experts in their own respective field, i.e. attorneys, software engineers, in some cases electrical engineers that fall outside of our realm of expertise. So what do? We were established in 2007. We specialize in product design development, primarily in the medical device industry. Our goal is to empower companies and individuals by leveraging our expertise in engineering, design, product optimization, and manufacturing. So we don't actually do manufacturing in-house. Again, like I mentioned, it'd be very difficult for us to cover the manufacturing needs of all of our customers. They're extremely varied. So what we have done is partnered up with different manufacturers in order to be able to get the people who are best at manufacturing whatever it is we're trying to accomplish as efficiently as possible. Because I can't pretend to be a manufacturer and also have a wide range of ability to design things. If we can manufacture a screw, we're great at a screw, but we're probably not going to be good at making pillows, right? To give that drastic different example. So long story short is manufacturing is sourced. What we do is we'll develop product for you, property take claim on. If there was an actual to be named as people who helped with that, and just so we have it to build a resume, but we stake no ownership. You'll leave our office with what we call an IP package, which will allow you to get quotes from any manufacturer that you want. We will also offer quotes from manufacturers that we work with, that we found, that we sourced, that we vetted, so that you have that as comparison purpose. And our goal is to actually earn your business on the manufacturing side. What we'll do is we'll basically make it easy for you. You just say, look, we need 10,000 of these widgets. You tell me the address of the warehouse. We'll take care of all the quality control. We'll take care of all the decisions in terms of what's needed for tooling, what's needed for compliance, what's needed for shipping and packaging logistics, etc. That way you can focus on the branding, the marketing, sales, all that stuff on your end. We do get on the brand side well. So that will be more of a consultative role. We'll help guide your salespeople. We'll help guide your business development person, whatever it might be, to help them do that. What we won't do is sell the product for you, but we can help you develop the tools so that you can sell that product on your end. So what we do is we basically just streamline the process from sketch all the way to production. These are some of the clients again that we've worked with in the past, and ranging from, again, jewelers, aerospace, medical devices, etc. What I do want to ask is if you want to understand more about any of these topics, I would be interested in maybe giving you a little bit more detail on some of these things, because this was very high level, and I know there's a lot of things that I could have talked a lot more in detail about. If you are interested, reach out to Dental CE Academy and see if maybe we set up some follow-up CEs that will dive a little bit deeper into specific topics that might be of interest. But again, in summary, we're a design and engineering firm based out of Miami, and we help individuals and companies go from idea all the way to a scaled product, focusing on profit margins, quality, and scaling. Is there any other questions?
Any other questions for Werner? Werner, do you have any more popular trends that you've been approached with lately that you can divulge? Certainly no trade secrets, but I know probably pandemic related, that may be slowing down a little bit, but.
Yeah, but in general, that's still a big trend. Infection prevention is huge. Not so much specific to COVID, but I think it did open up the eyes to everybody in the industry that there are a lot of ways to improve the health of the operatory. So that is something that is still really big, a big trend. Another one is ergonomics. I've seen that be a big trend as well. A lot of people are noticing that there is a lot of fatigue and being in certain positions for a long period of time can cause chronic pain. So ergonomics and infection prevention, those are two of the biggest things that we see a lot of in this industry, along with the more common trend that it not so much on the way up or way down, which is just making something a little bit easier than it already is, right? Just making everybody's life easier, tweaking little widgets that kind of reduce time in the operatory or cost, things like that. But in general, the two trends would be infection prevention or control and ergonomics.
Question from Dr. Nishimoto: how about AI and robotics and dental inventions?
Yeah, so AI is definitely a big push right now. Robotics, we don't have any firsthand experience with AI robotics in dentistry. We are working with a company that has to do with orthopedic surgery that's working with AI. So we haven't done anything directly in dental industry, but I do see that being huge. Actually, now that you mention that, another trend that may not be as cutting edge as AI is 3D printing in the dental operatory. That's something that has been huge, kind of to not really bypass a dental lab, but to optimize your process in-house to reduce your costs. So 3D printing inside the dental workspace, though not as new as AI, is something that I also have seen as a trend that's picking up.
Any other questions for Werner? And everyone, hopefully you have the handout. We'll repost that. In your course folder are both of the presentations. So information, you can reach out to Werner later. His contact info is there. Werner, anything you'd like to say before we adjourn? Let me check for more questions here. Thank yous. Thank you, Werner. Thank you.
Okay. No, that's all. Just, thank you everybody for your time. I hope you enjoyed this CE and I made it worth your time. So I appreciate it and have a good night.
Well, thank you, Werner, for being here, and thanks everybody for attending. We'll go ahead and log out now.